Joe Madureira, creative director.
So, Joe, what are you showing here at E3?
We are showing a new Darksiders game, actually, called Darksiders Genesis.
This game's a little different than the first three Darksiders games. What makes this different?
Well, first of all, we are introducing the Horseman Strife as being playable for the first time. It's also multiplayer co-op, so you get to play as Strife and War. For the first time ever, two horsemen can play simultaneously. The game can be played single player. You can switch on the fly between horsemen, and they each have their own abilities and sort of like there's a strategy to it. Strife operates more like a twin stick shooter. War has got all his moveset from the first Darksiders game, so it'll feel like an old friend. But in multiplayer, it's awesome because you don't have to worry about switching. You're just running around with your friend. War can handle adds and tank, and Strife just like blows them away from a distance.
About the gameplay, it feels like Darksiders meets Diablo.
Yeah, it's sort of it's interesting because when you were just like look at it, you'll see the isometric perspective, and it's like, oh, it's kind of like Diablo, but the traversal from the Darksiders games is there, like ledge grab and wall climb, and the combat feels like Darksiders, so it's like it's more arcadey and like brawlery than a Diablo game. So it's an interesting mix. I think someone said it was more like Diablo meets God of War or something like that. So I think that I'm curious to see how people react to it. But it does feel like a Darksiders game. I feel like we tried to preserve that.
Can you talk about this universe, this Darksiders universe, and what do you think it makes it so popular among gamers?
Well, I think early on we're such fans of Zelda, and I think we wore it on our sleeve, and we were like, what if someone made this kind of game for like a more mature audience with mature themes? And that was kind of like what we were moving toward back then, and then over the years I think there's just so many cool characters. It's sort of like this dark fantasy, but in often like modern day settings, like modern cities and stuff like that are converted into fantasy worlds. I think visually we always strove to like make the game super impressive looking, and Gunfire did an amazing job on the third one, carrying that on. So we definitely have our work cut out for us with a small studio doing a smaller game and still trying to make it feel visually epic like the other Darksiders games. I think I don't know. I think I'm gonna say the mature Zelda thing is sort of like what people initially gravitated toward.
Yeah, and I did feel in this game too, you did have puzzles. I mean, not just traversal and combat, there was also puzzle elements.
Right, there are puzzles. It's very much a Darksiders game. Only difference being like the camera angle, and it's mission-based. The missions are meant to be replayed repeatedly. Every level has a secret. There's cool stuff in there. Every level has a trickster door that requires a certain amount of keys to open, and there's usually some effect that happens when you do. Again, multiplayer is really fun because you can join your friend's game even if they're not as far as you. You'll sort of like be a badass in their game, and a lot of times when you do return to a level, if you have the right gear item, it almost has a Metroidvania aspect to it where it's like you're going to see stuff that you can't do yet, and then you'll get a gear item later in the game and go, ooh, I bet if I go back there, I'll be able to like get through that section I couldn't access before.
So what has your studio learned since Battle Chasers that you've applied to the formula for making Genesis?
Oh God, we've learned a lot of lessons. Scoping one of them, how much, not biting off more than we could chew, and really trying to only do what I think we can do well. I think with every game we try to surprise people, and even with DS2 we switched the main hero. There was like way more traversal than there had been in the first Darksiders game. We added loot. So in this game, I think the addition of like the twin stick shooter feeling Strife, the isometric camera, we do have creature drops and like ability trees and skill trees. All that stuff's coming online very soon. So there is like quite a lot of depth to this game still, even though it feels a little more arcadey. And it's really just information we've gathered over the years from people playing the game and like what they want to see. We went for a lighter tone in the story. There's a little more humor in there. It's a little more fun. Kind of pokes fun at the franchise itself and at the Horsemen, because it's a prequel. There haven't been Horsemen for very long yet, and they're still trying to figure it out. So I think it's a good jumping on point for new players that haven't played all three of the original games, because there's quite a dense story there if you have. So if you're like, hey, I've heard Darksiders is cool, but I have only played the first one or the second one, or I haven't played any, you can definitely pick this one up and jump in, and you don't need to know anything about the existing storyline.
So when does Darkside Genesis come out, and what platforms will it be on?
It will come out the end of this year for pretty much everything under the sun. PS4, Xbox, Switch, a couple other ones. Actually, I guess by the time you see this, it is coming out for Stadia as well, Google, PC, obviously. So.
And then two fun questions is, your art style is very unique, and you feature a lot of big swords in your games. How big is too big?
How big? Size doesn't matter. No. I don't know. I'm actually going back from that, because I think there was that move to make like weapons like so ridiculously huge and armor's huge, and now it's like I think we hit the breaking point where everyone's starting to rein it back in a little. It's like, okay, it's starting to get kind of ridiculous, and we're toning it down. I mean, look at Stripe. He has guns and little knives, man. No big swords.
And then last question is, you guys had a tremendous amount of success with Battle Chasers, both on PC, console, and Switch. What's next for Battle Chasers?
That is a very good question. I mean, obviously at the studio we would love to do a sequel to Battle Chasers at some point. That game was so fun for us, and the like fan support for it, and how many people ask about a sequel has been really awesome. So I would love to do it. We all would love to do it, but it's not anything that's firm at this point.